Welcome, everyone, to Cfbbroadcast.com Week 10 review, coming to you live from the heart of Dixie and the great state of Alabama, from She Shed Radio Studios here in Alabama. Getting ready. We're heading into the last month of the season, JB. November's upon us. Seems like just the other day, it was the end of August. We were starting with week 1. Here we are at week 10. Reviewing this week, looking forward to a big weekend coming up. This coming up weekend, 2 top 10 matchups with top 10 teams, or 2 undefeated teams. I'd seen where this is the first time ever that 2 8-0 teams have met on the same day this late in the season. So we got that to look forward to this weekend. But before we get into this week's game, let's review what happened last week. And right before we started filming our show, we had a little bit of breaking news where Florida State has decided to separate from Coach Taggart.
Yeah, we kind of knew that was coming, or it seemed like it was headed that direction, and that was just a dumpster fire from the beginning. I mean, it's not really. I don't think all of it is his fault. I think it was left in somewhat of that kind of condition, not as bad. But
you think Jimbo?
I think. Why did he get out? Why did he run out of there? So, but anyway, I heard some well thought of commentators on ESPN, this weekend just absolutely hammering Florida State's program, the way they turned into, they want to fight everybody. They're kind of, it's just a dumpster fire, and they had to do something.
Yeah, but you usually hear some rumors, or the coach needs to win this game. They were going in that game with Miami yesterday, and they were just beat down. They never were really even in the game, and I guess it was just embarrassing for the fans because did you hear the buyout that they paid him to go away? They bought him out at $17 million.
That's a pretty good parting gift.
Oh, boy, isn't it? So, and he came there with such fanfare. He left Oregon after 1 year at Oregon and then went to Florida State, and they thought that and it never did take traction there, and he never did. And I'm surprised that he struggled the way he did. Used to, you'd think of anybody could win at Florida State, but he couldn't. And now he's out, and he's $17 million richer.
He may be glad he's out, to be honest with you.
And then you'll start hearing the names being tossed about. You say what you want to, but that's probably it's a top 15 job. In this day, it was probably, 10 years ago, it was probably top 5 job.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for whoever comes in there to turn the
mojo, the mentality around.
The mentality around, because it's turned into basically just I believe the players run the program, and it's going to take some coach that has the stamina and the authority to come in and change the culture.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see who, you're going to hear the Stoopses of the world. You'll hear Mike Leach. You'll hear P.J. Flack. You'll hear Brent Venables. He seems to get mentioned for every job, but he never gets it for whatever reason.
Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin's on everybody's list. I guess they kind of throw that out there as a the meme or the picture with Kiffin with the sunglasses.
It'll be interesting to see who's interested in this job.
It is.
They're going to pay some money, but these successful coaches, money. Of course, money has something to do with it, but you think they're going to want to go there and tarnish their reputation?
Yeah, it's in a bad shape right now. I would just say one name to keep an eye on: Mike Norvell at Memphis, at University of Memphis. He's a good football coach, and he was on display last night on ABC as that was moving into the games that we had this week, there were only two teams ranked that played this weekend each other. So Memphis played SMU. SMU was undefeated, and Memphis won that game 54-48 as SMU scored there at the end to get a backdoor cover. Coach went for two at the very end. The line was 6.5.
Yeah.
He kicks the extra point. They get beat by 6, but he scores, and then he goes for 2. So, and he wins. They get beat by 6. So, but they've done a good job there at SMU. Sonny Dykes, left California, went there. Wasn't a good fit in California. Seems to be a better fit at SMU, and he's doing a good job there. A lot of good coaches are starting to come up through the American Football Conference, and Norvell's names is a name to keep an eye on because I think he's young and he's got a lot of he seems to know how to run a program. If you can do that at Memphis, you can do that anywhere. Then the marquee game of the day, we went back and forth last week. You liked those Florida Gators.
I did. I liked them.
And I liked the Georgia Bulldogs. We disagreed on that game, and Georgia won the game. And to me, it didn't even really look that close.
No.
I think Kirby Smart calls the football game so conservative, and that's what's so strange to me is he is as conservative as he is. And then he did that fake punt thing last year in the SEC championship game that didn't make any sense. And
well, Georgia, they looked pretty good yesterday. I have to give them credit. They needed to win that game, and they did. And Florida, I don't know, they had an extra week to get ready for that game, so I was a little surprised at how unprepared they actually looked.
No, I'm not. I've told you about Dan Mullen. When has he ever won a big game? When?
Well,
when?
You got a little animosity because of where he used to coach at.
Well,
you always want to get on Dan Mullen, but
when has he ever won a big game?
Well, I'm not sure when he's won a big game.
Well, he hadn't.
But he was in the big game.
He went 8-4, 8-5 at Mississippi State, and he did that every year. One year he had Dak Prescott, and they did pretty good. They won 9 or 10 games.
But his quarterback
and then they came into Tuscaloosa one year, ranked number 1 in the country, and it took Alabama about one half to just dismantle that whole dream.
Yeah, but you got to give him a little slack here. He's down to. I think Trask is like the third string quarterback basically, and
well, he looked as well as that Filippo Franks has played any this year.
Well, you got to give him a chance to get his players in there. So
this is his second year there, right?
It's his second year. But
what did Nick Saban do at second year at Alabama? If you can't win at Florida,
we got to give him a little time.
In year 2, then
But I mean, to me, Georgia looked. They look pretty. They look kind of like the Georgia of old, but they are really conservative.
Man, they're to a point to where it's going to haunt them in some game. It could really hurt them. So they won. We'll see if they can run the table. They've got a tricky game this week at Missouri. We'll see how it goes. But those were basically the two marquee games of the week.
But that basically wraps up the East for Georgia, for all intents and purposes, right?
Pretty much. They could go out there and lay an egg to Missouri, then Auburn could beat them, and then Florida's back in it. So, it's not over yet, but I think I read where they're 85% chance to win the East, and I'd go with those odds. So unless something just crazy happens, Georgia will be your East representative, and they will play the winner of the Alabama-LSU game this weekend. So that's, for all intent and purposes, that's what's going to happen.
Yep.
So The only other big games I would say this weekend that, as far as championship ramifications, you had Utah. They won a game at Washington. You had Oregon. They won a game at USC. So both of those teams have one loss. They seem to be on a collision course to meet for the Pac-12 championship game, and the winner of that game could be a one-loss champion. And if things fall right, I think they could get into the playoff, but I think there would have to be an upset somewhere along the way. I think Ohio State would have to lose to Michigan and maybe another game, and then they could maybe get in. Or Clemson loses to who could beat them?
South Carolina.
Well, you never know. Quarterback
not gonna lose
goes
again.
down or something. Well, you could see. So
Yeah, but they're not going to lose.
But they seem to be, Utah and Oregon, it seems to be on a collision course for the Pac-12 championship. The rest of looking inside the SEC, where we call home, we watched the game last night. Auburn beat Ole Miss. Basically had to hold on for dear life there at the end of the game. Auburn was in control of the game the whole game, but Ole Miss, with all their freshmen, they hung around in there, and they found a way to get the ball at the end of the game, and they got into Auburn territory with a chance to win the game, and they end up coming short. Matt Luke, he has a lot of close losses, but not many big wins. Ole Miss, they've got 6 losses now, another loss, and they're not bowl eligible. And with LSU on the schedule, that seems highly unlikely. So another year, no bowl for Ole Miss. So do you think Matt Luke is in hot water at Ole Miss?
No, I don't think he is. I think he's doing a good job. Like I said last week, and when we was talking about our picks and stuff, I would have picked Ole Miss had Ole Miss had any sort of offense, because Auburn's offense is just plain out not good. Mm-hmm. I mean, their offense is smoke and mirrors. I mean, that is all it is. And Ole Miss's defense is actually played good enough to win the game.
Boy, they've improved this year. Their defense has improved.
They just don't have any offense right now. Unfortunately, they don't have as much offense as Auburn has, which Auburn basically has nothing.
Well, and they keep talking about that Bo Nix. He didn't look like the best freshman quarterback on the field last night to me.
No. I mean, he had a lot of yards passing, but there were a lot of screen passes. But
I think that
Auburn's going to be in trouble against Georgia, and they're going to be in trouble against Alabama. The only thing they have going for them, for sure, for Alabama is they're playing at home, and Auburn's defense is good enough.
They don't look good
to keep them in the game, but I mean, you only scored. I mean, they can't score hard.
No, but they do have a good defense.
Yeah, they do.
That's the only thing saving them right now. Their defense is, from what I've seen, either their defense or Penn State's defense is the best defense in the country, hands down. But their offense is pathetic. Bo Nix, he's an average at best quarterback, and they've built their whole team around him. And they ran off Gatewood.
Yes,
that's happened since we've talked last. Gatewood is gone. So what if Bo Nix goes down? A number 24 is their quarterback.
I don't even know
Have you ever seen a quarterback number 24?
I've seen a 22, but not a 24.
Yeah, but that should tell you all that you need to know. So that brings up a case. Matt Luke, a lot of people at Ole Miss, they're not happy with him.
I think he's doing a pretty good job myself.
Well,
what he's got to deal with.
Well, I don't know. Last year he had 5 first-round draft picks, or he had several.
Yeah.
He had 5 drafted players in the high range.
That was his first or second year last year.
That was his first. That was his second. That was his first full year.
Yeah.
He got hired midway through, or he.
We'll see, but I mean, he played at Ole Miss. I'm right. He did play at Ole Miss. I mean, you can tell. You can tell that he loves the job.
But
I wouldn't get rid of him. I mean,
well, we'll see. I think he needs to win that Egg Bowl this year. I think he needs to. So, and I think that coach is in trouble.
oh yeah.
I think he may choose to go before being shown the door.
But they had a big win this weekend.
They did. Well, they beat Arkansas, and that's another team that may be looking for a coach. That is the worst program that I've ever seen in the SEC.
Everybody's looking for a coach, or going to be looking for a coach.
What if Auburn drops to Georgia and Alabama? What are the native?
Oh, they're going to be restless, but they not. But Gus is not. He ain't going anywhere.
I don't think they can pull that trigger either. But
unless he wants to. Now he followed that up with another 8-4 season next year.
Oh well, he loses everybody next year,
and then it'll be the wheels on the bus, on the Gus bus, go falling off.
What does the Auburn fans at work tell you?
They ain't happy.
They told you that they was off the bus.
They off the bus.
So if you've got enough high money, it's not like Auburn not to pull the trigger if they want to.
Oh no, they got the money to do what they want to do, or a few people down there do.
So, if he drops to Georgia and Georgia and Alabama, that seat's going to get hot.
But they got to be running out of money at some point. They're still paying Terry Bowden, aren't they? And Tommy Tuberville.
Well, if they lose if they get ugly losses to Georgia and Alabama, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. We will see.
I don't know.
South Carolina beat Vanderbilt. South Carolina right now is, I believe, 4-4 or 4-5. They've got work to do to make a bowl. They got a ranked team this week that they're playing. They could get to 6 wins, and with that schedule that they had, which the people said that was the hardest schedule in the country, that would be a big accomplishment for Muschamp. So, especially after getting beat like he has to Tennessee and stuff, but he could make a bowl.
That Georgia game messed them up. They won the Georgia game, and then they had a big letdown. Then
Tennessee beat UAB. 30 to dominated UAB.
Sure
won
did.
that game. That was a good win for Tennessee trying to get bowl eligible. So here we are, last month into the season. Tennessee's 4-5. If they win 2 out of the last 3 games, they'll go to a bowl. One of those games is Vanderbilt. You got to think they're going to be favored in that game. So if they can win either at Kentucky, and I've seen that they are a small underdog this week, or at Missouri next week,
they could get to the bowl
and beat Vanderbilt. They could get to a bowl, which after the first 2 weeks of the season,
you wouldn't have
thought it. Any Tennessee fan would have taken that.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we are with the SEC. The rankings came out today, and basically the top 5 teams in the country, all of them had byes this week. I think the only one that played was Clemson, and they played lowly Wofford. And so basically there was no teams that played inside the top 5. Georgia had the biggest move up to, they are the highest one-loss team, and I think that's telling. They're basically telling Georgia, you went out, you can get in the playoffs with that.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, you have Oregon and Utah, how they've set them up side by side. That looks like that gives them chance to maybe get in the playoff picture if things fell right. What I found interesting was Oklahoma coming into 9, which tells me even if Oklahoma wins out,
it's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough for them to even get into the playoff picture.
Yep.
And I think that because they're just one spot ahead of the Florida Gators. And that doesn't really do much for Baylor as well. Baylor's sitting there undefeated, and they are 11th, and they're basically saying, yeah, Baylor, you may go undefeated, but you're going to have an uphill battle trying to get into one of those top 4 spots. Is they're sandwiched in between a couple of 2-loss teams as Auburn comes in at number 12. Minnesota, on the other hand, I think what they're telling them at 13 is we just don't believe you.
Yeah.
We don't believe you're as good as you are.
They're
or
saying
as your
forget
record.
about it. Forget about it.
Yeah, unless you've got to run the table. And do you think Minnesota's going to beat Ohio State?
I don't.
I do not either. And I don't think they will beat Wisconsin, but we will see. We will see. Then Michigan is at 14. How they keep putting them up there, I'll never know, but we will see. But then we go, so that brings us into this week's game, Week 11. The quote-unquote game of the century again at Bryant-Denny Stadium between LSU 1, Alabama 2. I feel like I've seen this before.
You did. 2011.
2011.
1 and 2, and I believe LSU was 1 back then
LSU was
also.
1. LSU was 1.
Now, when does the CFB football poll come out?
Tomorrow night.
So, we're saying 1 versus 2. We're going by the AP poll.
Right now.
When these polls, when these polls come out Tuesday, because all the advertisement is 1 versus 2.
Yeah. Well, right
ESPN,
now,
everybody's saying 1 versus 2. So, when this college football poll comes out and say Alabama's 4, LSU's 1. So it's going to be 1 versus 4. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So it may not be the game of the century.
No, I agree with you, and I think Alabama will come in at 4, like you said. I think they are going to, and they may even put them at 5.
They could. I don't know if they'll do that because of this weekend, because they know that'll take care of itself one way or another.
Yeah, I get that, and but I wouldn't be surprised. Alabama's not played any team with the pulse yet.
No, so it's going to be a good game.
I would say I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk. LSU's 1. I think Ohio State could be 1. LSU 2. I think it will be one of those two, one way or the other. There. I think 3 will probably be. It could be Alabama. It could be Clemson.
I think maybe Alabama's got he's got a little better resume than Clemson. Who has Clemson played that's any good?
Well, they haven't played it.
Alabama's had
both of them. Their best win is against Texas A&M.
Yeah,
and if you look at it, Alabama did beat Texas A&M a little bit, handled them better. That may go into it. I don't know, but
this is going to be an interesting game.
You say what you want to, but these two teams did meet.
Oh yeah,
and Clemson did blow their doors off last year. And
you're right.
So I could see it going anyway. It doesn't really matter.
No,
I think Alabama has to win, or they're not getting in the playoffs. That's my opinion. But you never know. You never know. They lost this game a couple years ago, and they were only taking 2 teams back then, and they made it. So we will see. So I think Tua's injury, I think he'll play.
I do too.
I don't think that there's any doubt about it. I think that
unless some kind of rehab hadn't came along, but see, you're not going to find out anything from reports or anything, and that's of course that's the way Coach Saban wants it. He don't want nobody knowing what's going on, but in my opinion, no way Tua's not playing in this game.
No, I don't see it. I see him playing. I think if there was any question, Las Vegas would not have put out any line on that game, and they've got Alabama listed as a 7-point favorite. And what surprised me is they said that even if Mac Jones was the quarterback, Alabama would still be favored, a 2 or 3 point favorite.
What do they know?
I find that shocking.
I do too.
I find it shocking because, to me, the best team, if I had a ranking and I was doing a poll, I would have Ohio State 1. I would have LSU 2. But there has been a little bit of glitter knocked off of that Texas win, as that doesn't appear to be as a good a win as that we thought it was beginning of the year. But they still beat a good Auburn team. But they had to kind of hang on for dear life for that. So I think with that line being 7, if Alabama, if Tua's healthy, I think they are in a good shape. If he's not healthy, though, I don't see how you could have Alabama a favorite from what I've seen LSU do this year. I think that Joe Burrows has played as well as any quarterback in the country. I think Coach Orgeron has done an outstanding job this year at coaching, and he's had a lot of criticism. But
let's see how he always coaches tight against Alabama.
Well, and I thought even in that Auburn game last week he coached tight.
He did. He starts getting, I don't know if he loses his mind or he starts doing things differently, but it seems like every year when they play Alabama, and even in the Auburn, like you said, he starts coaching a little more conservative. But, I think Alabama's offense is better than LSU's offense when Tua is in there. I think LSU's defense is a little bit better than Alabama's is. So it's it is. And I mean, if the game to me is going to come down to the key to this game for Alabama is number 33 and number 24. That's going to be the key to the ball game. Write that down on your paper right there.
33 and 24. If they can get pressure on Burrows.
If they play the way they have been playing, LSU's not going to run up and down the field on Alabama. If they can play like they've been playing.
Who's Alabama stopped?
Just write it down. You got it right there.
I got it written down, but who have they stopped?
They've stopped everybody they've played.
Well, I've seen Ole Miss go up and down the field on them.
Oh, yeah, but
that don't count.
Not saying it don't count, but, a lot of that was.
I seen Tennessee in that game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but there's a lot of that when they've got the 2s and 3s in there getting some chance.
That game was.
And then you got people lining up offsides and extending plays against Arkansas.
But I just don't think Alabama's defense is that good this year.
They're not that good. They're not as good as they have been. But
I've seen that Burrows a lot defensive up.
Jennings and Lewis have played. They've played to their potential the last few games.
But here's the deal:
if they can do that, Alabama will win.
Burrows gets that ball out of his hand.
Yeah, he's good.
So fast that it's not even funny.
But they don't have the receivers Alabama has. They have maybe 2.
Yeah,
they got one.
Nobody's got the receivers that Alabama does. But
I'm not of the opinion that LSU is going to blow Alabama out.
No, I'm not either.
And I don't think they're just going to run up and down the field on Alabama.
I'm just saying I don't.
That's my opinion.
We're going to see.
I may be wrong.
We're going to see. I think LSU's has impressed me as much as any team has in the country outside of Ohio State. Ohio State has just been obliterating teams. So we will see. That's going to be a great game. 2:30 game. Thought it would be a night game, but it's 2:30 game.
And CBS wasted their pick with Georgia and Notre Dame early in the year, which turned out to be not a good decision in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, they had to make that decision in the summer, and it had been 2 years since LSU had scored on Alabama. Nobody knew LSU was going to be as good as they were. And if you get a chance to show Notre Dame in prime time, they're the biggest draw in college football. So I don't fault them for that. So it is what it is. 11 o'clock Saturday, Penn State at Minnesota. Minnesota rode the boat with P.J. Fleck. Penn State's a 7-point favorite on the road at Minnesota. That's going to be a good football game. That's the first of a couple of big games in the Big Ten coming up. Penn State's got Minnesota this week and got Ohio State in a couple of weeks. that's going to be interesting. So,
did they play for a game day to come to Minnesota?
No, did not.
I wasn't sure how they announced it.
They announced early yesterday that they were coming to Tuscaloosa. I think they did on game day.
Okay.
But game day will be in Tuscaloosa. Baylor, one of the last unbeaten team in the Big 12, they are a 2-point favorite at TCU. So TCU's already got a win against Texas this year at home. So I think Baylor's on borrowed time. They barely beat West Virginia this week. This may be the week that TCU pulls the upset. So we will see. Here's an elimination game in the Big Ten. Iowa, Wisconsin. The loser of this game has no chance to win that side of the Big Ten. And Wisconsin's got to hope they can run the table and hope somebody else beats Minnesota along the way. So the Wisconsin-Minnesota game's coming up, and that will all likelihood decide the champion of the Big Ten on that side to play Ohio State. And I see Ohio State walking through the championship game in the Big Ten. Then we go into the SEC this week. Games of the SEC of interest. Missouri at Georgia. Keep an eye on this game. I say this game is closer than the 14 points. Georgia coming off a huge victory. And Missouri, they're Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Yeah. You don't know which team you're going to get with them. But they will get up to play at Georgia.
Yeah, got to be ready.
So if Georgia wins that game, you can pretty much punch their
Georgia,
ticket into the right them in. Appalachian State at South Carolina. Appalachian State, they were undefeated to this week and got beat. And South Carolina's only a 3.5-point favorite at home against them.
Yeah, it's like I said, that South Carolina gave us some when they beat Georgia. However that happened.
Yeah.
They had the big letdown, and now they're only a 3.5-point favorite?
Yeah. So we will see. That is a must-win for South Carolina if they want to have any shot at making a bowl. Then the last game of the week that we'll talk about for Week 11, Tennessee at Kentucky. Must-win. Kentucky and Tennessee, both of them are playing to get to a bowl game. Would be a huge win for Tennessee.
Earlier this season, I would have said chalk that up as a win for Kentucky, but I'm not so sure at this. Tennessee's actually looked better.
And they have, but they're a young team, and we'll see how many weeks in a row they can play. They've done a lot better the second half of the season. You got to just think what would have happened had they not laid the egg like they did the first 2 weeks of the season. They could be playing for, maybe a New Year's Day bowl somewhere, Gator Bowl or something like that, instead of trying to just make it to the Music City or Independence Bowl or whatever. But I'm sure they would take what they could get at this point.
They said you can't. Who was that said you can't spell citrus without UT?
That was Spurrier.
So, maybe they can get to the Citrus Bowl.
Boy, if they could get there, they would take that.
They'd like that, wouldn't they?
They ain't getting there, so you don't have to worry about that. But that's a preview for Week 11. Any games of interest you want to go out on a limb on and call for a winner? I'm calling Missouri game will be close against Georgia, closer than the 14. And I'm going to say that South Carolina will manhandle Appalachian State inside the SEC.
Yeah, I'm liking Tennessee right now.
You're on the ball train.
I'm going with Tennessee over Kentucky. And then the big game, Alabama LSU game. I don't know. I'm not gonna make a prediction on that.
Jump out there.
No, go ahead. Give me yours.
The team with the most points.
You ain't got to pick against the line. Just give me the winner.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know yet here on Sunday. So it's going to. Here's one thing I can tell you: it will not be 9-6 this year.
No, it won't. That's
So
for sure.
it will probably be more than that after the third possession of the game. I'm looking forward to a great game between I think two of the top 3 teams in the country, and I'm interested to see what the polls look like from the playoff committee. If there's any surprises,
They may leave them 1-2 just because they know they want a 1-2 matchup.
Yeah,
because one of them's gonna lose. You know, I mean, one of them's gonna lose, and that's gonna sort itself out.
I don't think they will do that because I don't think they want to keep LSU so high if they lose by 3 or 4 points.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I got you. Yeah.
And then it's harder to move teams around. It's going to be interesting to see where they fall. So we'll see. That's Week 10 review for Cfbbroadcast.com. We are moving fast along. November is the month where you start getting your conference championship games set up and things like that. Rivalry games are at the end of the week. And we're planning on being here for all of these games, leading right up to the playoff selection of the Final Four. And the season is just so short, and it's already on the last month. So we just want to thank you guys. Please visit us at cfbbroadcast.com here at our inaugural season. Coming to you live from She Shed Radio Studios. We would like to thank our producers, Perry Madison and Kimberly Madison, for putting this show together, doing the editing, and all that they do. Thank you guys much for watching. Thank you much for listening. And we will see you next week. And we will have a lot to go over next week, as Week 11 is a big week. It's separation week. And take care. We'll see you. Goodbye.